Hello, good evening. I'm Oral Gibbes, and welcome to Oral Gibbes Live. And with me this evening, I have none other than Mr. Lake Jr. He's president of he's president of Independence for St. Martin Foundation. I'm tripping up there. How are you doing, Mr. Lake?
Okay, good, man.
It's good to have you.
Good evening to you and your listeners, and your viewers and listeners.
It's good to have you here because you've also authored many books
Yeah,
in the last few years.
I've written several books. The last one is 649, which is basically dealing with the issues of 21st century St. Martin.
Right. And, you know, it's amazing because I was at the launch of that book party. And, you know, when you think about St. Martin today and what's happening, what's taking place, it's like we're not prepared. And people are saying, look, they can't even manage this island now that we have this special status within the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
You know, Moral, Einstein always said that if you do the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same results in the end. And if you expect to get different results, then you're really crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And when we look at after 10-10-10, if you just look at it, and we look, for instance, our Constitution that after the 10-10-10, it was nothing else but a stick and paste and cut Constitution of the Netherlands Antilles. If you look at the rules and the regulations that we done, it was nothing else than basically transferring the Netherlands Antilles ways of doing things to what we call now country St. Martin. And the truth of the matter, the Netherlands Antilles failed. That's why it doesn't exist today. And now, if you take something that has failed and you want to exactly imitate that failure, then of course you're heading towards a failure. We are now stuck in a situation where, for instance, if you look at our parliament, everybody keeps saying parliament hasn't done anything. The parliament is basically a copy of the parliament of the Netherlands Antilles. It has never been, and what does our parliament do, especially when it comes to our laws? It basically rubber stamps laws that were made by the government of St. Martin, by the minister.
Right.
If we really had moved towards a stage where the parliamentarians have to make their own laws, not just rubber stamp them, but make them, write them, lobby amongst themselves to get a majority to pass whichever law they want, whether it's a law on the environment, whether it's a law to keep, you know, whatever it might be. I as a politician, you as a, let us say, two parliamentarians, whether they come from separate parties, but they believe in something, let us say they believe in cleaning up the pond. And then they have to go there, the two of them join forces to get 18 or 15 or 14 or 8 majority parliamentarians to pass these type of things. Suddenly you'll have a different kind of parliament. Likewise in government, imagine if we had a government where the prime minister had to be elected, an elected official. Then suddenly you will have a person in there who's prime minister with a lot of power because he or she will have the force of the electorate behind him. Normally in a situation like that, the prime minister will be the biggest vote getter in the island, on the island. That again goes into the whole concept of our people who really believe that the political leader of the country should be the biggest vote getter. Now, if you set the system up in such a way that the biggest vote getter will automatically be prime minister, this person will have much more power to get things done. Then if you set it up in a way that the prime minister and the parliament, you force them to work together by saying, if Parliament have to, for whatever reason, be able to send home the Prime Minister, they will also automatically be sending home themselves. Then suddenly, no, it wouldn't be nobody's or the Prime Minister. If he dissolve Parliament, it means new elections, right? So you start getting a more active approach to this thing rather than the laid-back approach which we have now. Everybody looking at everybody and everybody waiting for someone to do something. And the people that they're looking towards are not doing nothing, so nothing is happening on the island. And now you hear a lot of times this cry of, oh, you know, the Hague is going to is going to take over the island, and they're going to run the island. Again, the dependency syndrome of, yes, we can't solve it, so the Hague have to solve it. If we look at our history, we'll see that for the last 60 or 100 years or more, we have never dealt with our own problems the way we should deal with them. And often those that are in key political positions have always looked towards The Hague for the solution. And The Hague, even with the best of intention, cannot solve our problems, because our problems and their problems are different problems. They have different interests, we have different interests. And even when they think they're sending us the right decision, they're making a mistake, because they don't know our society. They don't know our culture. They don't know our way of life. They don't even know our sunshine. The way our sun shines and their sunshines are different. So therefore, when you go back and you look at these things, you can end up with the same problems repeatedly for the last 60, 70 years, and the solutions are again wrong solutions, so that everything continues to be stagnant and in a wrong way.
But we had a member of parliament that was elected with the most votes. Then he said on this program that he will definitely be prime minister. But then the Dutch government stepped in and said, no, 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 you're not going to be prime minister.
You know, Harold, that situation really upsets me. And I'll tell you why. If you run for office and you make a promise to the people of this country that you're going to do something, at least you should try and do it. And by that I mean, if you told the people that you were going to run to be prime minister if your party wins the votes and you have the majority, then it was your duty to submit your name to be the prime minister of this country. And if, for whatever reason, you are denied that position, then you should, then at least the population will know that you tried, that you will try to live up to your promise. But when you completely tell the population something and then don't go out and do it, then I consider that you have made a grave and a serious mistake. And that I cannot accept. I could accept that you tried, you made a promise, you tried, and it didn't work out. That I could understand. But when you completely refuse to try, that I cannot accept.
You know, I know you've been around for a very, very long time. You've been analyzing our politics for a very long time. But what I'm seeing now is this is the strangest thing in our history, because here you have a political party where the leader has disappeared, where the deputy leader was on this program, performed very, very well. People called him and complimented him and said they're doing a good job, and then they presented a working program for the government. And in that program, I understand that it was presented without even the knowledge of the party leader. It seems like it's falling apart. It's scary in a way, because we need to have a strong government. We need strong leadership. Nothing is happening right now. We're at a time that we can't allow this to go on any longer, where the person that the public places their confidence in, who promised to be prime minister, who promised to make sure keep a government together, and almost every day they're fighting to break this government. I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, that again, like you said, the country is leaderless. Let us be honest from that point of view. The country at this moment is not in the state that it should be in. And a lot of it definitely goes back again to this whole thing of being leaderless, and also not having within the system that we work. For instance, a system of recall.
Okay.
You know, if you had a system of recall, people will have known that, well, I could go out there, and if we get 5,000 signatures in this situation and we feel nothing is being done, we will have a recall, and we'll have to have new elections within a certain period. And then you'll be placing the power in the hands of the people. Just like how with a referendum, if certain key issues are not done, you'll have a referendum and the people will decide. We just saw it happen in Greece.
And they called it so quick.
You know?
Yeah.
And in a week time, they had a referendum, because what the political leaders realized was at a certain stage, they could not make the ultimate decision, and they took it to their people, and then the people made a decision. Likewise, but again, it goes back to that whole old system in which really we talk about having a democracy, but I've always said it repeatedly, we don't have a democracy. A democracy cannot exist in a colony. Let us be realistic with that. The political bosses, the people that really run this country, nobody voted for them. They're sitting in The Hague. They can make all the key decisions on anything that our parliament makes a decision on. They can overrule it. So what we do, we're playing dolly house politics. We're not really playing political game. We're not in the political arena the way we should. As a result of this, we're not experiencing what democracy really means, ruled by the people. So the people who's supposed to have the final say of whatever happens is not having the final say. The final say is they're giving the impression that we have in the final say. That's why in The Hague they could say, if you don't do this, you don't do that, we will step in and take it over. Likewise, if the country is rudderless or leaderless, there's no instruments for the people to go back to the people. Even in our constitution, when they talk about a referendum, it's a consultative, it's not a binding referendum. So with all of these type of things taking place, the lack of a prime minister that is directly elected by the people, which will have the type of powers that he needs to really run the country and put his cabinet away. Within the parliament, the lack of the parliamentarians really having, a parliamentarian really should have a cabinet, a office with 2 or 3 experts working with him, with every one of those parliaments, so they could write the laws that they need for this land and then go there and lobby it. There's no solution, for instance, to what we talk about the issue of parliamentarians jumping. You vote for them today and tomorrow they jump. You know, a lot of these things, there are solutions for them. For instance...
But it's not in their interest to change that.
It's not in their interest. There are solutions, for instance, on that jumping issue in certain parts of the world where, for instance, when you run on basically like on our system, so you run on a political party. Right. Once the party is over and you get elected, for the first year you cannot jump, you cannot leave. The party makes the decision. That way the party will elect, for instance, who they want to be to sit in the ministerial council for them, representing the party. The first year, if you decide that you don't want to be part of the party, you have to leave, give up that seat, and the party gets it and puts in another. After the first year, then you could become an individual in the sense of you jumping. But I mean that first year, the party will have a chance, and you too will have a chance to see, because you make agreements before the election, what you're going to do. So these agreements will have a chance to be implemented, and after that year gone, everybody will be able to settle down and know what's going on. But we don't have those type of things neither. So what the end result is that we have a lot of confusion because there are no instruments to make the political system works in a way. And we know this for the last, in the Netherlands Antilles, in St. Martin, we know these things. So we know they have to change. So if they have to change, why don't we put together certain committees or commissions to look into really changing these things based on our culture? That's another thing. Our political system is completely alien to our culture. So therefore you have that clash that this political system and this culture, this way of life, they're two alien things. So there's constantly that back and forth, and people could walk away from situations, people could make promises and then don't live up to them, and there's nothing you could do about it. You know, and then there's no punishment neither from the electorate, in the sense that the punishment will be that when you come back wrong, you will not get reelected, you know. And there's no standards, because really, you're not living in a democracy. You're living in a dictatorship, what you call a colony. And in that colony, the main objective of a colony is to serve the interests of the so-called mother country, to enriching the mother country, and to enriching the ruling class in that colony, who normally, when things go real bad, what do? In this modern world, they jump on a plane now, and they go to Miami, or they go to Europe, and where they have already permanent residency. So their permanent residency means that when everything collapses in St. Martin, they will be able to leave and go and live comfortable in Australia or any part of the world.
But you know, Mr. Lake, there's another problem developing slowly here, and it has to do with the budget. The CFT is insisting that the money owed for the pension fund and SLV should be paid. I think some 76 million somewhere there. At the same time, they're also stating that St. Martin overstated its income. And the President of Parliament was here on this program last week, and he said it was brought up to them by the CFT that they should consider selling off some of the assets of St. Martin. Now, we know what happened in Greece where they're forced to sell off assets. If you look at it, this is a very small island. Right now, the majority of persons, local St. Martin people that are employed by government-owned corporations, companies. These same government-owned companies make up something like almost 40% of the GDP of St. Martin. And when you're asking to start to consider selling, personally, I think that's extremely a serious problem for us.
Not only that, Moral, if you go back into the history of Puerto Rico, you'll see that they were, many years ago, they were also encouraged to sell off a lot of their assets, the governmental assets. And today we see it turns out to be one big failure because Puerto Rico today is economically and financially in some serious problem. Now, there's certain assets that no country or no island, I believe, that's what I believe, belongs to the people of that country and should never, ever, in my opinion, be sold off or to business people who will run it for a profit. Because it's more than, you ensure your very survival of your people with certain things. You remember years ago when certain foreign companies, and the U.S. is the bastion of capitalism, if you want to call it that, were trying to buy off a lot of U.S. farmland. Yeah. And you remember the U.S. government stepped in and put brakes on that.
Also U.S. television networks. You know,
right, you see that. Yeah. So why? Because there's certain things that are really deals with the very essence of the nation, and you cannot sell them off because they belong to all the people, right? So when we talk about selling off things, it's easy for them for other people to tell you what to sell and what not to sell. But we know how our people are, and we know how our island is, and we know what are the most important assets that make us as a people and ensure our very survival. Imagine, for instance, if we sell off something like our airport, and then for whatever reason, the owners of that thing, one day, for whatever reason, decide that certain airlines that have to be coming in here, let us say after a big hurricane or something, and they have to come in for an emergency landing, and they decide at that last specific moment that the runway is not adequate for that landing, and they have the final say. There are certain things that the people of St. Martin must, in my opinion, must always have the final say because it belongs to us. That's how we ensure our very survival. There are certain things that you could get rid of if you want, sell it off because you're going to use the funds that you get from that to create something else that is also of vital importance to you. It's like if you have to sell your house to save your child's life, you have to do that, you know. So there's certain things that our nation might be forced at a specific time to sell or something, but there are other things that you just cannot sell. And I'm very careful with certain key issues of our very existence, like things like the airport and the harbor. If the harbor and the airport, from the very beginning, one of the reasons why the colonial bosses came to St. Martin was because of our harbor, right? Right. For 300 to 400 to 500 years. They saw the importance of the harbor. The strategic location of ours here is based to a great extent on our harbor. So if it's strategically important for 400 to 500 years, what are we now today going to decide? Because the CFT decides. And the CFT are not St. Martiners. The CFT final bosses are the bosses in The Hague. The CFT doesn't report to the people of St. Martin. The CFT reports to the bosses in The Hague. So when the CFT says that we should sell out some of our major assets, they have already reported that to the bosses in The Hague and most likely have gotten an approval.
They already have a buyer too.
You know, and they already have a buyer. So they can't, they're not doing it for our interest. They're doing it for their interest. And likewise, those kind of key issues, I will say, just like the Greeks, if there's a key issue that they have to be solved for St. Martin, then let all the people of St. Martin decide in a referendum whether we want to sell it. Don't put that in the hand of 15 parliamentarians and a governmental staff of 22 ministers and their advisors of 30 or 40 people. No. Take it to the people of St. Martin in a referendum and let the people decide, because it belongs to all of us. So therefore, let all of us decide.
But it looks like, you know, if you look at government in St. Martin over the years, they're very reluctant to bring anything to the people. You know, it's like, and the people right now are extremely disappointed in the way the government is performing.
Well, you know, again, we go back to the dictatorial thing. Dictators, and now we're not talking about the individual, we're talking about the
system,
structure, the system. The system of our colonial system has always been one in which the decisions are dictated to the people. They are dictated to the people. It's not that the people make the decision and they respect the decision of the people. So based on that idea that a few wise men and wise women will make all the decisions in the interest of the whole population, and really not in the interest of the population, but in the interest of what the political bosses in The Hague really wants them to do. That has always been our main problem. So when we look at the situation, we will always come back to the understanding that the structure of the system is not set up, is not put together for the people of this country to benefit. Because if it was put together for the people of this country to benefit, after 60, 70 years of tourism on this island, how is it that there's no hotel on this island of 100 rooms that is owned by St. Martiners? How is it that all the major funds, the millions going through this island through the gambling industry, St. Martiners really doesn't own nothing in there? How is it that the biggest, and we're just talking from the economic, financial point of view, that even the banks, St. Martiners don't play no major role of being major shareholders. We're not, how many St. Martiners, in fact, are even the general managers of these things? How many of these banks really even have their headquarters here in St. Martin and are not branches where when there's a branch, the profit could be moved out of the country? You know, there was a report out today, I believe, in one of the papers in which they said something along the line that 1 million guilders goes through this country every day and it's not accounted for, basically. You know, so why is all of these things happening? We, the people of this country, are not benefiting. Why are our young people so, especially the boys, I keep coming back, especially to the males, why are there so many of them dropping out of high school? Why are so many of them incarcerated? Why are so many of our people, young people, in drugs, using these things? So you could see, because of the frustration of the system, which is not set up for us, irregardless of what it says. Because these things should not take place on a small island like this. With the kind of funds that passing through this island, we should not even have, as St. Martiners, we should not even have to pay the same type of taxes that foreigners pay on this island. Because there are places in this world where the native population, the people of that country, pays a much lower rate of taxation
Just the reverse
than the people, the foreign people that come there to work and stuff. So but for this to take place, you have to be also living in a democracy where you, the people, then make your decision.
But Mr. Lake, you got to look at it this way too. In fact, this island is us, the native people, that pay the bulk of the taxes, actually. We're the ones that are hunted down and literally driven to the grave for the last kilo, that last dollar, while others come in, make millions, and just disappear.
Yeah, you're right. And not only In fact, almost in every area right now, we are on the lowest ladder as a people. Financially, we don't run the finance, we don't own the major financial institutions. Business-wise, we don't own the biggest businesses. Politically, we don't run the country. Politically, we don't really run the country. We are the front men. People see our faces, but everybody know we don't run the country. The people that run the country don't even live in St. Martin, and nobody in St. Martin voted for them, you know. And so you could go down the line where we lead incarceration. Yes, our young people are very much incarcerated, punished. Why are they punished? Why are they not in equivalent in universities? Yes, we have a great amount of them in universities, but we have a great amount of them too. Suffering all kind of discrepancies and pains. And if we go into certain areas on our island, we will see the poverty there. And again, especially amongst our people, the poverty is so strong. And what about getting jobs that our people are the last to be hired on this island? And this island supposed to belongs to them. So we could go down the line on everything, and then we'll start to see it comes back to the whole system. It was not designed to enrich us, to help us to grow as a people, to help us to develop. And they make sure that this thing will continue based again to a great extent on our educational system, which is not based on creativity. It's based on really copycatting, being copycats. Oh, they did it that way in The Hague, they did it this way, and therefore we should do it this way. But if we've been doing it this way all the time, and we see that we're not getting results, we go back again to Einstein business, then you got to change.
You know, speaking about locals, in fact, I'm glad you brought it up because Mr. William Brooks is among 3 candidates proposed by the board, supervisory board of GBE. And I just hope that the government of St. Martin will name Mr. William Brooks as the new CEO for GBE. Now people say, well, that's kind of strange. Oral Gibbes and Brooks had quite a fight. Yes, we did. But you know what? He's a St. Martiner. And he can't be a St. Martiner, living in St. Martin, and can't enjoy the fruits of this island because people come from all over the world and become multi-millionaires on this island. And he's one of us. And yes, we've had our differences, but I've said to many people yesterday and today, William Brooks deserved that job because, number one, he's qualified. He's a St. Martiner. We've had our differences, and I still maintain my position at the time when he was at GB. I hope that he's a different man today, that he will respect and treat St. Martin people with dignity and respect and do his work, which I think he can do. But I really believe that as a St. Martiner, he should get the job. It shouldn't even be a situation where they had to put 2 other names there for that position.
You know, once St. Martin people are qualified, and once they're
and he's qualified,
then there should be no. That's why we send our people away to study. That's why we send our youth away to study. That's why we do everything within our power to bring them back in order for them to contribute, so that their contribution will make life better for all of us. Because it's not just that you want them to come back and get the jobs, you want them to make those contributions to the society. They could contribute by the position they hold, by the example they set for the younger generation, by their insistence that their people also get the opportunities to grow, by them teaching in many ways. And because once you hold certain positions in a society, and especially in our society, people look up to you and expect things from you. And often, especially young people who you don't think are even looking at you, or not don't even know. You believe they don't even know you exist. But they know.
They watch it.
They know, and they're looking at you. And that's where you carry an extra burden when you have certain positions in this thing, in this society. And therefore, it's a privilege, but it's also a responsibility. And if you want to benefit from the privileges, you must also carry the weight of the responsibility.
And it's not oftentimes easy either.
And definitely it's, you know, like the old saying, the more you climb, the more difficult it's going to get.
Yeah.
And but that's also part of, that comes, like they say, with the territory.
Mr. Lake, when you look at the situation now, are you more optimistic today than, say, in 2000 when it comes to independence for Simran, seeing all the problems we go through?
With independence, I'm more optimistic today than before.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe that we are getting there, that people are starting to see it more and starting to realize that the only when you take your own destiny into your own hands can you ensure not just your very survival, but your progress in this world. That anytime other people have to do, nobody could do something for you better than you could do for yourself. The same thing with a nation. Nobody could do for a nation better than what a nation could do for itself. And the world itself expects you to do for yourself, and by doing yourself, also contribute to the growth of mankind and the benefits of men and women all over the world. So from the independence point of view, I'm definitely much more optimistic of seeing the growth. When I look at our nation and the economic and the financial positions that we're in at this moment, it's at times it is discouraging, but you also realize that, you know, it's like an hour at times for something for change to take place. At times you're going to make one step backward or two steps backward to make 3 or 4 steps forward. So for me, one of the most important things is to keep hope alive, you know, keep hope alive. We cannot give up. Like sometimes people will say, yeah, but it's gone so far that they can't change. Everything can change. In fact, the only thing that is constant is change. That is the only thing that takes place every day is change. And I believe, now some people might argue that the change could be for negative or the change could be positive. I'm one of those people that believe that the change is definitely positive for St. Martin. And despite all the hardships that we're going through, despite all the disappointments, you know, there are certain areas that you could see when we are given an opportunity. You could see how we blossoms. Like for instance, in radio and television, you know, we've been working, and I've been working with you for over all these years, and I could see how you have grown, that now you're world standard. You're not just a St. Martin TV radio reporter, no announcer. What you know, on a world standard, you could sit here, you could do the same thing for CNN. You know, when I look, for instance, in the area of the musicians, and I hear Dow play a pan today, it's world standards, you know, or you hear Youth Waves playing the world standards. So you could see where the nation have progressed greatly in certain areas. Politically, I think we are in stranglehold, and that comes from two things. One, we are a colony, so we have never experienced democracy, and then number two, the grip in that area. We are not allowed to experiment in the political system. They're almost like, you know, hoodwinked in a certain direction, and as long as you remain in that colonial setting, you will constantly have that type of a problem. So in areas and even in education, we see a lot of progress, because I believe now today, when St. Martin 60 years ago maybe had maybe 100 university or 50 university graduates, I'm sure right now we have over 1,000 university graduates, you know. So you see, despite all the setbacks, we are still moving forward with the rest of the world. We are in there. We are still players despite all the obstacles and the chains that we have around us. So, like everybody, at times you get disillusioned. You get especially with the political arena, especially in the economic fields, when you see that there's no St. Martiners with hotels of 100 rooms that we own and run, and when you look and walk through the casino, when you look at the financial aspects where the money really is, and you see that there are very few of us, or almost none, very few of us in that area to be an example to for our younger people who want to strive to go in the area of business. And we should be now, after 60 years, not only owning major hotels in St. Martin. After 60 years, we should have been owning international hotels throughout the Caribbean, should have been owned by St. Martin people, because we have that 60 years of experience. Likewise, especially in casinos, we should have been owning casinos throughout the Caribbean, because again, we had that experience. You see? So when you look at these things, you get at times disillusioned. You get disillusioned, you get sad, you get frustrated when you look at Front Street and you see the $1 million jewelry stores that going down there, and you're looking for St. Martin's. How many of these are our people? How many of us own these mills? So you see in that financial, and often people use that. They use that to say that we're not ready for independence because, oh, we don't have the financial, we don't own the jewelry stores, we don't own the major hotels, we don't own the casinos. Not realizing that the reason you don't own these things is because you're not independent. Because if you were independent, you will be making these decisions, the true decision on these things, and you therefore then will be solving these problems. But as long as you stay in this system, you will not own these things. You will always be seeing others coming in who are really in many ways the true bosses, who will then be gobbling up these things, and you again will just remain as basically servants of these peoples in many ways.
About the foundation bringing Dr. Gonzalez here recently, I think it was quite a good idea. He's quite an intellectual also. I was very, very, very impressed with him. I don't know how you felt about it.
I mean, I like to tell people most of the praise and who have to go for that is Rhoda Arendelle.
Yeah.
She and her team, they really went out and the work, and she was consistent. People thought he just came like that. It wasn't like that. Mm-hmm. She tried many times before, and many times he always wanted to come, but there was always something happening why he couldn't get here. But she kept on it. She kept on it. And even when we had him here, he came for the weekend, and up to the Tuesday, we were not sure that he was coming. Everybody was still nervous, you know, trying to get it going. But the end result was that, again, you see where perseverance take over. She was persevered, she and her team, and they kept on it, and they kept working on it. And fortunately, he was able to come. You saw that he's one of the great Caribbean leaders of our times. Very knowledgeable man, very well connected, very concerned about the Caribbean, especially about the situation in the Dominican Republic, which is something that we all oppose in every sense of the word, and with everything we have. That situation, we can't afford to have that situation in the Caribbean. It's definitely a very terrible situation where what is happening to the Haitian people. It reminds me often of the Holocaust that took place in Europe with the Jewish people when they took away their citizenship, and they went through a lot of this type of suffering simply because, as Dr. Gonzalez said, there was ethnic discrimination. But as far as I'm concerned, there's also racist discrimination and even class discrimination.
Hold that thought there for me, so let me take a coffee. Or they're not there yet. And I think you're quite right. It's something that I think is wrong, and not too many countries are speaking out about it. That's what surprised me.
Well, you know, because in many other countries, the same thing is happening. Yeah. You know, we have to be honest. In many other countries, in the Caribbean and in the Americas, the same thing is happening. So many of them can't speak out of them. The people are speaking about, many times the political establishment is not speaking out against it, because let's be honest too, the political establishment uses these type of things for political reasons too. What is easier? If you go through the history of mankind more often, and right there in The Hague, in Holland, it is happening. The people that always attack the immigrants, the weakest ones, it's very popular amongst many politicians. That's how they get their votes. They get their votes by telling the people that finding a weak group, a group that they feel that is who can't hurt them or damage them in any way, and then they direct their failures and tell many people of that specific nation that the reason you are having a difficult time is because these people are taking away your jobs.
Yeah,
or
Hitler
these people
Yeah.
are keeping your country dirty.
Right.
These people are polluting your country. These people, these people, these people. And then people buy into this type of thing. We saw Hitler did it. It was fantastic. He did it in thing. For instance, in the Dominican Republic, you know, one of the men that played a major role in this hatred was their former dictator Trujillo. And you know something? I was reading up on it, on the situation, and his grandmother, according to the expert, was a Haitian. And he sold them the idea that the Dominican population was really basically made up between Spanish conquistadors and the Taínos Indians. Just like how Hitler sold the Germans the idea that they were Übermensch and special human beings, and they had to get more living space. Again, you see the living space situation. Get them out of the Dominican Republic so we could get more space. Let me take over Europe so we could get more space. You know, so this kind of discrimination and ugly attitude that is used throughout the history of mankind, we have to, in the 21st century, get rid of that, especially here in the Caribbean. We can't afford for that that germ or that evil thing to spread throughout the Caribbean. It must be every one of us, in my opinion, every one of us must do our role to stop this, whether it's by just saying it is wrong, or whether you want to take more action, or you want to do something. But every one of us must do our little part, not only to see it end in the Dominican Republic, but to see it end throughout the Caribbean and throughout the world. Because, and this might sound very crazy, what I'm going to say now, but let us look at what happened, what were the reasons used against the Haitian people, right? For instance, they are poor, right? They are black, right? And culturally and ethnically, they're different. They speak Creole, right? Flashback now, for 1 second. What we here sitting in St. Martin saying that can never happen to us. Aren't we poor compared to the boys in the Hague? Aren't we black and the white compared to the boys in the Hague? Aren't we ethnically different? We speak English, they speak Dutch, right? Isn't there a politician or two in the Hague who have always built their reputation and building their reputation in talking about us not being like them, or that us being problems to them? What happened? 5 or 10 years from now, some of these politicians win a big election over there and decide for 1 split second that they would like to break with us. And they will start by breaking with us by, for instance, taking away our their nationality, which they allow us to use. You see, it might sound at this moment that that can't happen, but it has happened throughout the history of mankind. And it can happen again unless we are vigilant to make sure that these things don't happen. Not only to what's happening to the Haitians in the Dominican Republic, or what happening to blacks in Brazil, or what happening to blacks in Europe. We must also make sure that don't happen to right here. We must also make sure that our immigration policies should not dehumanize other human beings. Because we can't say, for instance, that what is happening in the Dominican Republic is wrong, but then we use words like we got to clean up St. Martin from these people. Clean up means to say that the other person is not a human being. You see? So we have to also look in the mirror at ourselves and say these things must not happen. And if they happened before, and those of us who are honest in St. Martin knew that those earlier days in the 60s and the 70s, those immigration raids, they were ugly.
Even up to the late 80s.
They had people, when they picked up people, they threw them down on the ground, and they were picked up and they were discriminated, and the women was treated like, in fact, they had them in cells with men and women together. Those things must never happen, not only in the Caribbean, they must never again happen in St. Martin. I truly believe that we as St. Martiners, We might not be able to be a military superpower. We might not be able to be a financial superpower, but we have the foundation and we have the roots to be a moral superpower to the world. We can be a moral superpower to the world because our ancestors were very just people, very honest, loving, God-fearing people. And we must build on that so that when St. Martin speaks in the future as an independent nation, the rest of the world will have to listen, just like how they listen to Pope Francis today. As a moral superpower, we can be a moral superpower. And those are things that we must strive for as a people.
But, you know, Mr. Lake, a lot of people on this island today are worried about the future. We've seen more poverty on this island. At the same time, we see more wealth. And the wealth is distributed to a certain few. And it seems like if you're a St. Martiner, it's extremely difficult. You were saying earlier about business, but I tell you, as a St. Martin person, if you want to start a business, it's more difficult for a native than a non-native. It shouldn't be that way.
And that's why I say that laws are made and laws can be changed. You know, people often say it's the law, it's the law. If the law is supposed to be there to benefit the people of that country, not to hinder them, not to punish them. It should be there to benefit them. And if there's a law, for whatever reason, that has become, that might have been good in the past, but now as we move forward into continue in the 21st century, that law now becomes a hindrance, then it should be changed. And that, again, is a mentality that you have to develop to realize that change is constant, and if you don't change, even when you have a good thing going, if you don't continue to change it and improve on it, it's going to eventually fall behind.
But part of it, Mr. Lake, is corruption, because it should be easier to get a business as a local native,
I truly
but it's
believe,
corruption too.
I have said it before and I'll say it again. Corruption in these small islands is equivalent to war in a big country because they are destructive. It destroys the whole fabric of the society morally, physically, spiritually, in every sense of the word. Corruption is what is war for us, for bigger countries. Just how war destroys buildings, destroy, murdered people, slaughter people. That is what corruption does. And for people to truly understand, if you have $1 million, and that $1 million could build 4 schools, but because of corruption, it could hardly build 1 school. That is 3 other schools, and maybe 2,000 children that could have been comfortable sitting in a classroom that can't sit in that classroom. And then when that is finished, and those who did the corruption and run away with the money, the population still have to stay back and pay for that thing. So corruption is something which, you know, especially in small islands like ours, we cannot afford that type of thing. We should be definitely as vigilant against it and as uncompromising against corruption. If you're uncompromising against war, and you realize that war leads to the death of human beings, and like the U.S. President Abraham Lincoln said, the only thing good about war is in its ending. Likewise, the only thing good about corruption is to root it out of your society uncompromisingly, because that is what destroys a nation. Like some people said up to this, somebody said to me, you know why certain things are not taking place? Because certain small groups cannot benefit out of it yet. And we are following the trend of the world, a small little ruling class, and then this massive pull on the taking place. What is happening in the world is almost identical happening here. A small little ruling class that benefiting from all the luxuries of this society, and then you have a massive unhappy class of people, poor people working hard, and that gets me really annoyed. If there's one thing that gets me annoyed, is when I hear people say that St. Martin people don't want to work and they don't like to work. St. Martin people work hard, but they're the last in their country to be hired and the first to be fired. But our people just work hard, and they are exploited, and that really makes all of us who really love this country and love our people. And when I say our people, I always include myself. I say my people, because sometimes some of us say our people, and we sort of exclude ourselves as if we're not part of that.
Right.
You have to, when you say our people, when you say St. Martin people, you have to include yourself in that suffering and that pain, as well as the joy that comes with being a St. Martin.
Well, Mr. Lake, we just about out of time, or anything you want to add quickly? You only have about 20 seconds remaining.
You know, I always have to say that I truly believe that the only way forward for St. Martin people is through independence. That's the only way that we're going to take our own destiny and then decide what is truly in our own interests. Otherwise, we're going to continue to stay in the same cycle.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Lake, and success.
My pleasure.
And that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Till then, good night. Take care. Bye.